All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining. We have such a great group here today. Chambers from lots and lots of summer travel communities, literally all across the country, all up and down the eastern seaboard and out to Montana. And I think we've got some Utah representing, Wisconsin. So it's really great to see you all. We, as a sponsor organization, we really appreciate the support of the local chambers of commerce for the summer work travel program. So we wanted to take this opportunity to just give you all an update. I know we've certainly been getting calls from many of you, just wondering, because you've been getting calls from your members, wondering what's going on with Bridge USA programs for the summer, particularly summer work travel. And so we wanted to give you a bit of an update and then also enlist all of you to help us get the word out that we're facing increasing challenges with participants getting visas. And now is the time that we really need to start making some noise in the local press and making sure that the program, that participants are able to get visas, they're able to come here, and that we protect the long-term program goals. So thank you again for being here. So today, joining us as a panel, I'm here, Erica Curley-Harris. I'm with CIEE. I manage government and public affairs at CIEE. We also have Tanya Borofeva, who is, I hope I said that right, Tanya. I feel like I get it wrong.
You said it perfectly. Well done.
Tanya is the External Engagement Associate Director at InterExchange, which is another summer travel and Bridge USA sponsor. We also have Denise Bexon, who is Vice President of HR and Government Affairs at Maurice Piers, really a wonderful advocate for the program. We're so lucky to have her here today. And we also have Vicki Clark, who is the President of the Cape May County, New Jersey Chamber of Commerce on the Jersey Shore. So going into our agenda here. So we're going to go over what we're looking at for summer 2021. We're going to be, transparent with you all in terms of some of the headwinds that we're facing. Talk about our goals for engaging all of you folks to help us out. And then we're going to talk through a media engagement playbook, as well as some talking points that you can use to discuss the program. We have some resources for you all. So we have a sample op-ed article that we're going to share with all of you. And then we also have sample talking points. And we're going to emphasize this throughout, but please know that sponsor organizations are really here as a resource for you. So if you have any questions about the program, especially if you're unclear, I know that the consular visa stuff can be a little tricky. So definitely don't answer something that you don't feel comfortable answering. Feel free to use the sponsors as a resource for that and direct any press contacts to us. So Tanya, you're up next.
Sure. Well, thanks, Erica, and thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your support and your time. We know you are very busy, so we'll aim to keep this short and to the point. And this, as you may have noticed, this meeting is set up as a meeting, not a webinar. So in case you have any questions in the end, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask your questions. We will be here to help out. And before we go into a deeper discussion about media engagement and why we need your help connecting with the local press, we would like to bring you all up to speed with where things currently stand with the summer work travel season for the upcoming summer. So there are a few steps that need to be successfully completed for participants to be able to arrive in the US and for the work and travel season to unfold in a timely and safe manner. In a typical year, the US welcomes around 100,000 exchange participants. In 2019, for example, the US hosted 108,303 students. And in 2020, for obvious reasons, participant numbers were much lower. Only 6.7% of participants made it to the US compared to 2019. And despite the very unusual program experience last year, participant satisfaction rates with the program were very high. And we've seen this in sponsor surveys that we've conducted with the students, from one-on-one check-ins that we've done. So this year, we are seeing a steady demand from both participants and host employers. We're seeing steady interest and steady demand in the program. And as program sponsors, we have been matching students with qualified seasonal host businesses in all of your communities. And because this year we are operating under unusual circumstances, there are a few challenges that as an exchange community we are facing right now, we're dealing with to facilitate students' safe and timely arrival in the US. As we are connecting right now with US consulates overseas about scheduling visa appointments, what us as sponsors and our overseas partners are learning is that there is no unified approach on the consulate side when it comes to processing of non-immigrant J-1 visas. And we're also seeing that accurate and up-to-date information is very scarce. And normally, sponsors and our partner agencies would have meetings with the consulates to discuss visas for the upcoming season. And this year, these meetings either haven't taken place yet, or they have been extremely delayed. What we've learned from a few consulates and embassies that did respond to the outreach is that J-1 visa appointment slots will be very limited. In some cases, consulates will be able to process very limited numbers of appointments per week. The upside to this is that we know we've heard some posts that Thailand and Ecuador have issued some J-1 visas. We have anecdotally heard that appointments may be available in Jamaica and a few other embassies. So this is changing. However, it may not be changing fast enough. And to give you an idea, in a typical year, around this time, we would have 90% of participants matched with their hosts, and 20% of participants would have gone to their visa appointment by now, with this number going up to 70% by late April. And this is with the expectation that participants would be arriving for Memorial Day or early June. So now we are in a very critical time point for participants to schedule their visa appointments. And in addition to the situation with the consulates and visas, we still have regional travel restrictions, which are currently still in place, and they're impacting participants' ability to travel to the US if they come from Schengen area, in Western Europe, Brazil, or South Africa. And the CDC has also instituted testing requirements for anyone arriving in the US by air. So the good news is that all participants coming into the US this summer will need to present negative COVID tests taken within 72 hours before their departure date, or they would need to present documentation that they have recovered from COVID if they were sick. So this is where we are at, and the embassies and visas is the big challenge right now, and I'll let Erica a little bit conceptualize the issue even more.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tanya. So looking ahead to the summer, our first and foremost goal is to preserve and protect Bridge USA programs long-term. And I want to be very clear that I say long-term, which in some cases, that may run a bit counter to wanting to get as many participants as possible here for summer 2021. I mean, that's what we're looking at realistically. We, as sponsor organizations, we're ultimately responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of program participants. We will only bring participants here if there's reasonable expectations of their health, safety, and welfare, as well as a positive cultural exchange experience. That said, part of our concern is that the longer that we go without a program, the harder it may be to get back. Students might decide to make other plans. They're not going to have the same word of mouth where they have friends who've gone on the program before and speak really highly about certain communities or hosts or what have you. But for what we really need all of your help with and why you're here today is that what we want as a community is to see U.S. embassies and consulates open up for visa appointments for Bridge USA participants where it is safe to do so. We're not asking for any special treatment for the program. It's that right now immigrant visas are being prioritized by consular. We saw reports last week that this was from the Assistant Secretary for Visa Services at the Department of State. And as of last week, there are only 43 offices in all of the U.S. embassies and consulates all around the world, which is about 18% of them, were processing non-immigrant visas. So we will be sure to share a link to the press conference with you. That's a great source to share with media. But at the moment, it's fairly unknown to us exactly which of those posts are, where the biggest bottlenecks and backlogs are. So we feel that it's time to really start making some noise about the issue, particularly with members of Congress, but also just the American public at large. We know, you all know from your communities that these programs are really popular with host employers as well as with guests who really enjoy that diversity and the cultural exchange that happens with students coming on these programs. And so we need to help both the public and policymakers understand that this is a really important program and that we're at a critical juncture for timing. So I would just emphasize once again that we do not expect you all to be experts in consular affairs. It's quite complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces. So if you are successful in getting a reporter's interest and the question about consulates and visas comes up, please refer any questions to a sponsor organization or directly to the Department of State. So I want to turn it over to Vicki here to talk about Chambers and your media relationship.
Thank you. So most of us are in areas that are more remote, which is why the J1 summer work travel program is so important to us. I know there are some folks on the call that are in larger, more metropolitan areas, but for most of us, we're in smaller communities that have, more community-related media contacts. So, we find that it works best reaching out to your local media and you probably already have, personal relationships with them. And they're always looking for stories. And you may have several papers in your community, but you want to work with the paper or the reporter that is going to give you the most coverage and that will perhaps do a series on this story. When you're talking to them, you want to give them data. You want to give them the tourism stats for your community. You want to give them jobs numbers, both year-round jobs, tourism jobs, and the number of positions that the students fill when they come to the area. And always please remember to refer to the students. Don't refer to the summer work travel programs as workers. You want to talk to them talk about them as students because it's important that we talk about them more in this community role that they fill when they're here as the international exchange students. So you want to talk about how important the students are in needing to help keep your businesses fully operational. So how many jobs went unfilled last season? And we have that data now in many communities about businesses that just were not able to have all those positions completely filled. You want to include the businesses in your articles. Make sure that you have talked to other businesses that are willing to be interviewed and talk about, bringing that personal face to the articles. Both larger employers and also those businesses that might only employ one or two students and maybe even only part-time. And then also keep in mind that there are many businesses that may not employ any students at all, but are very affected by the loss of the summer work travel program in your community. And I'd like to use the example that we have of my colleague that's here with us today, Denise Bexon at Maurice Piers. Maurice Piers is one of the larger employers of summer work travel students in our area. They are large boardwalk businesses in the Wildwoods community. But we have many businesses along our Wildwood Boardwalk that don't employ any of the summer work travel students, but they set their hours of operations based on the hours that the boardwalk piers and the rides and the restaurants on the piers are open. So if the Maurice Piers operation is not able to be fully staffed and open and they have to cut back, all those other businesses along the boardwalk, they also cut their hours, and other employees that are local residents are losing hours, maybe even losing their jobs. So even though those businesses are not employing summer work travel students, the local workers are impacted by the loss of the summer work travel program. And it's important to bring that aspect of the story into the article. You want to, as was said before, don't get bogged down in the regulations of the program. Refer that to the sponsors, or refer the reporter directly to the Department of State, to their website. They can get all the data that they need right there. This story is about your community and the economics of the program, and you want to stay on focus. Put a face on the story with the businesses and the local employees that depend on the students who are coming. To the visitors whose vacation experience depend on the business being able to be fully open, fully staffed, and operating safely. Focus on your community and how the dollar travels through your community. And I know the chambers that are on this call have those diagrams of the dollar moving through the community. You might want to pull that out and use that illustration. Keep them informed on any status updates on the program. And I'd also like to encourage you to make it personal with yourself. When you're at the grocery store and the person at the checkout is a student, talk to them, engage with them, find out where they're from. When you are doing, doing business somewhere, or you're having dinner, ask if you can take a picture with a student and post it on social media, just to make it personal and bring some life to the program through your own experiences, because this is what makes it personal in the community. And be willing to share that, be willing to make yourself part of the story. And so then I think, Denise, you and I are going to tag team a little bit on the next section, which is about the economics of the program. And we are, as I said in some of the points about the media, the Bridge USA participants represent a small but critical percentage of our seasonal workforce. We want to make that point, many times over when we're talking about this in our community. We want to talk about it and make sure that people understand that these students are not taking jobs away from the local workforce, but they are supplementing the local workforce. Many times, without the summer work travel program, local people are unable to go back to their regular jobs. We want to make sure that people understand that, knowing the numbers, that the year-round population, the visitor numbers, the number of J1s annually impact the community in your county or your state. Identify the businesses that can be your spokesperson in the program, and coordinate with the businesses. Conduct a strategy being sure that everyone's on the same page, be sure that everyone in your chamber understands, what your chamber is doing, engage your board. You need to, have everyone thoroughly educated and on point with the messaging, so that everyone is talking about the same things, so that everyone in your chamber is fully educated on the program and knows if they're asked that you're all talking about the same things. So Denise, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Denise, I think you're muted.
I can't believe I did that. Darn it. Okay, so I had some thoughts on how to best engage your employers and ensure that they're prepared to speak to a reporter on this story and that they have the necessary and relevant information to really have make an impact during the interview. They need to know their numbers and be prepared to share them. I think often the program's criticized, it takes jobs from Americans, or they could be employing more Americans. And I think data is everything to combat this. How many positions does the employer have open? How many applicants do they get? We hire 1,500 people here at Morey's, and I don't even get 1,500 applications. That's a reason that we use the J1 program. What positions went unfilled in 2020? So we have 1,500 positions here. We had 750 people last summer working. So we were hiring all summer long and never reached, the critical mass we need to be fully open. Those types of numbers speak and they paint a picture. And I think it's important that employers are able to share that as, that data for these stories. Understanding and communicating how these students overcome challenges in the local labor force is also important. So even in a non-pandemic year, you have a lot of these seasonal businesses may employ minors, but minors have limitations on the number of hours they can work. They have limitations on the number of the types of positions. They can't work in all food positions. They can't work some of them, food fryers. They can't serve alcohol. They maybe aren't able to operate a ride. So some of these J1 students supplement where your minors are unable to participate. Additionally, a lot of the summer work travel are here earlier in the summer when our students are still in school, and they're here until past Labor Day. Our schools are going back earlier and earlier. We're competing with football camp and cheerleading and all of these types of activities that have moved further and further, into the summer months. And so therefore it becomes even more important to have these J1 students that can work the shoulder seasons, which still remain really busy from a visitor perspective. I think it's important that an employer be able to talk about what they do to find employees locally and why they can't meet their needs without the J1 program. And if they can find an example that emphasizes the need, that really seems to hit home. I always share that our local public school graduates 50 students a year. So we have a high school that is about 200 people. It's graduating 50 students a year. I could hire every one of those students, their siblings, their parents, and still not get to 1,500. We don't have a local population to support our summer visitor needs. And having sort of an anecdotal or story to go along with that to illustrate it can be pretty powerful. When I use that quote in a interview, it's almost always picked up because people can relate to that. Have statistics available to support the point that Bridge USA programs are beneficial for the American workforce and the community, that they help to keep and create American jobs, and they contribute millions to local economies through housing and rent and shopping. And Vicki spoke to this point about following the dollar. And I think really illustrating and what we've really been sharing over the past year is that, every dollar we take in a seasonal business, helps to float us all winter long. And we've been using another analogy where we say we've got a scuba tank and we've got to fill that tank, with air. We've got to fill, our bank with dollars. And that's got to get us through a whole, fall, winter, spring season till we're open again and making money. And when you don't realize your full potential because you don't have the staff to be fully open, that impacts the number of people you can carry over those non-operating months. And, we were fortunate last year to have about 90 J1 students, and I can directly contribute 20% of the revenue that we made last year to those students. And that is a big part of carrying our full-time labor force. And had we had more, we wouldn't have had to do some of the furloughs that we did. So I think driving that point home that these students support the American workforce. I think it's also important for employers to keep in mind, first and foremost, Bridge USA is a diplomacy program. The business need is important, obviously, but don't overlook the diplomacy goals and why the program exists. So wherever we can be mentioning them hand in hand, that's really important. And I think when employers can be a good storyteller and have examples of how the students enhance the workplace, offer diverse perspectives, and add to the community, that just helps to create a really good and compelling story. I also think it's important for employers to be able to share some of the program that they do in order to enhance cultural sharing and learning. Finally, Vicki touched on this. I want to mention this as well. Know the terminology and encourage employers to choose their words wisely. Use words like student rather than workers. Never use the word cheap when referring to the program. I think probably 90% of the time when I'm interviewed for a story, the reporter asks me if the J1s are better than American workers. And that's just such a trap. And we really should be focused on the fact that they supplement our workforce. They're available at times when the US workforce isn't, shoulder season. And that, yes, they're good workers, but our Americans are good workers too. And when I have a reporter that really tries to get me to make a statement on this, I always compare it to, this is the program this J1 student is participating in this summer. They've been arranging it for months. They've invested in it. They're here with a goal to practice, to improve their English, to know American culture. This is going to help them get ahead in their future career. If you take an American and they were going overseas on a similar program, you would have the same type of response to the workplace and have a really good worker. And what's different is those students come here and this is what they're doing for the summer. Our American students live here. They have their normal distractions, grandma's birthday, Bobby's pool party, summer camp for cheerleading. So it's a different focus. So when people say that they are better workers, I just say it's a different focus on what they're here for and what they're trying to get out of it. That usually helps with that point in a story if someone's trying to have me say they're somehow preferred or better. And then finally, I think it's important that employers know the ask. What is it we are specifically asking for? What do we need them to convey in the story? What's the main message? And currently, it's for visa processing prioritization to lift the ban or let it expire, and then, long-term protection of these valuable programs. So I think to have a, successful chamber employer interaction, having some conversations about these things in advance, and then ensuring that everyone knows the end messaging is really important to have everyone be on the same page and ultimately be successful with these press outreaches. And Vicki and I have done it for a long time together. We're a little bit of a tag team with the press, and then also when we go to advocate, at the Hill, and we'll each take different points of the issue, whichever it's better coming from, and I think it presents a nice holistic picture of how this program is just a win-win-win for the employer, for the business, for the community, for the employees, and for the economy. So that's sort of how we've handled it, and hopefully that's gives some good ideas and is helpful. And I will turn it back over to Erica.
Thank you so much, Denise. I really appreciate it. And Denise and Vicki are really superstars in this area in terms of their program advocacy. So we really appreciate it. Everybody benefits, not just on the Jersey Shore, but really all across the country. So thank you so much. We would love to take some questions. I wanted to just point out too, the focus of this training is really on the press. but now is also a great time to contact your member of Congress about this issue or members of Congress. There's especially a good amount of energy in the Senate around reaching out to consular affairs, reaching out to the administration. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but I would love to take any questions that you all have for our panelists. And feel free to just unmute yourself or you can throw a question into the chat. I see Jim has a hand up.
Thank you. A lot of what you said was preaching to the converted here, at least. We, in a normal summer, have several hundred J1s. And frankly,
Jim, where are you from?
I'm sorry, I'm from northeastern Minnesota on the shore of Lake Superior, a little town called Grand Marais.
That is beautiful.
We had a larger summer last year than anyone expected, and without the 300 or 400 J1s normally who are working in our county, our employers and their staff were absolutely exhausted by the end of the high season in mid-October, to the point that they say now, it looks like it's going to be every bit as good as last year, and we really don't know if we can do it again. They're that tired. And so the thing that's most important for me is someone who doesn't actually employ them and doesn't work directly with someone like CIEE is I'm not quite clear on the legal status of this program, because you talk about some appointments in some consulates, and yet my understanding is that the Trump proclamation won't expire until the end of this month. So just what is the situation?
Sure, Jim, thank you so much. And that's a really important question. So thanks for bringing it up. And I would definitely invite my colleagues to jump in here as well. So you are referencing Presidential Proclamation 10052. So this came out on June 22nd, and it paused the issuance of visas on a number of Bridge USA programs, including 5 with a work component, summer work travel, au pair, intern, trainee, camp counselor, and J1 teacher. However, there was an injunction in October, and the injunction said that for any member of a plaintiff organization, which included the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, that ban could not go into effect. So CIE, Interexchange, many of us on the call as chambers are members of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And there were a couple of other associations that were part of the National Association of Manufacturers were involved in that lawsuit, as well as the specific sponsor organization, which is Intrax. And so what that means is that since that injunction in October, effectively the proclamation, it doesn't have bearing. So and in addition to that, the proclamation can and should expire at the end of the month. So there's no legal reason that the visas cannot be issued. What we're seeing is instead the consulates are making either individual or policy decisions to prioritize immigrant visas over non-immigrant visas. And part of this, there's a lot of moving parts in this program. And certainly, COVID is the biggest issue here. But a couple of weeks ago, another proclamation, which was 10014, was overturned. And that was a proclamation about immigrant visas. That was issued before 10052. So that was rolled out in April of 2020. And so there's a really extensive backlog for immigration visas. So the fact that these two things were kind of happening at the same time, and that immigration visas take so much longer, but our understanding, both from what we've seen on the ground, as well as this press conference that happened early last week, it sounds as though the vast majority of folks are just not accepting non-immigrant visa appointments. Does that clarify? Great. And Tanya Tanya just dropped in the chat a link to that. And we, in follow-up from this call, we will send you talking points. We'll send you that great op-ed template that you are welcome to use. And then we'll also include the link to that briefing.
Yeah, and just to add a quick note to Erica's perfect summary of the situation with proclamations, what we are seeing is that the court order on the proclamation 10052 is being unevenly implemented by the consulates, and consulates are still using this proclamation kind of as a reason not to schedule visa appointments, even though they can, and according to the court order, they should be processing these visas. And in the briefing that the link to which I posted in the chat, we learned that I think it's 43 out of, or 46 out of 220 plus posts are currently currently processing non-immigrant visas, but we do not know what those 43 posts are, consulate posts are. So there's no information that has been shared with us from the State Department and the consular services side.
That's right. And then there's also the issue that participants are getting visa appointments, but they're not until well into the summer. And so even if a student is able to get a visa appointment for July, for example, they maybe could still come for 6 weeks and help these communities with the shoulder season. But for them, if you think about it, one of the things that's really helpful about the program for the participants is that they're able to offset their costs. And so if they're only able to come here for 6 weeks, the cost of the visas and the fee that they paid in order to participate in the program, their insurance, their housing, their flight, it's just harder to make all of that back. And also just these are young people and they're going to want to have their summer plans figured out before that point.
I just wanted to jump in. I think this really just underscores the point that we're trying to get,
Tracy, can you introduce yourself really quick? Sorry.
Hi, I'm Tracy Taylor, and I work with I represent the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, and have been working on this issue. And I think what this really just underscores is that we need the State Department to really prioritize this processing, because really ideally these visas would all be processed by May 1st. And so it's not only is there everything that's going on with COVID, but with the administration changes, there's just a lot going on. So it's easy for them not to prioritize. And so that's really a key point we have to make, that they can take their time with other things, but if they take their time with this, it's going to affect the seasons that your businesses and communities have.
That's right. Thank you, Tracy. Do we have any other questions? Also, just feel free to shoot me or Tanya, or I'm going to volunteer Denise and Vicki as well. If you have any follow-up questions, we're welcome to be a resource. You're more than welcome to come to us for any resources. As I said, we're going to share talking points and a letter that's a template letter to the editor. So we again just so appreciate all of your help and support on this.
If I can, real quick, Erica, my name's Kim Semarelli. I represent the New Jersey Amusement or Attractions Association here in New Jersey. We're in the process, working with Denise, of putting a letter together to go to all of our political affiliates to sign on all the companies that are locally affected in the attractions industry here in New Jersey. So we're doing that like almost as we speak. Denise, texted me last night, and we're all working on the letter, and that'll be going, from New Jersey, of all the attractions associations. So, we're happy to share, obviously, with everybody. Denise will share, we'll share if anybody needs that. But that's what we're doing here, with the amusement park attractions, because it obviously affects us, just not Maury's, but everybody here.
Thank you so much, Kim. That's really great. And I would put in a plug as well. So if you are successful in getting, especially a local news article out, I would encourage you to share it with local, state, federal elected officials as much as possible, because they need to see how it's being impacted.
And I just wanted to, Vicki, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's been some interesting press from Ocean City, Maryland. I don't know if you want to share that with the group, or everyone can Google it as well. But there's been some good articles.
Yes. Thank you to our friends in Ocean City.
Thank you all for recognizing that, Vicki. Yeah. So there's certainly been a concerted effort. We're contacted often several times a week here from the news media wanting to feature a story. And our opening line is, we'd be glad to participate so long as the messaging that's being delivered is indeed factual and complete in its course and measure, and have been successful thus far, in that effort. And so we'll continue to do that. Had another reach out today relative to the program, and really just embarking on awareness and education, as you all are familiar, related to the program. We had a committee in-house that I've only been here about 90 days. For some of you I've met, but prior to my arrival, it was called the Seasonal Workforce Committee, relative to the J1, and we made a change in the name of that committee, and now it's called Summer Work Travel. And part of our focus has been really educating the community, the visitor, on what the program encompasses and how to, if nothing else, refer to it in its proper text.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lachelle. And the Ocean City now Summer Travel Committee, I guess is what you're calling. You all have really inspired so many other community groups really all over the country. So we really thank you for your work. You guys were some of the originals.
Erica, can I just say one more thing?
Please.
And I just wanted to, I have to say, y'all are such important voices in the community that when we are on Capitol Hill talking to members, I mean, it's so impactful when they hear from you all and have, and hear from their local press and hear what you're saying. So everything, you don't think that anything you're doing in this area isn't worth your time, because I think it really is. It is worth your time in spades, because it makes a huge impact on policymakers. That's what they want to. They want to know that they're helping their constituents in their areas, and this is how they hear it. And when they hear that there are issues, and then they can do something about it, it's really meaningful to them, and it makes our job easier. So thank you.
That's absolutely right. Any other questions from folks? If not, we'll give you about 15 minutes of your day back. So thank you again. We will send a follow-up email very shortly with the resources. Would definitely encourage you to try to reach out to those media contacts sooner rather than later. As Tanya shared, just with our statistics around how many students would typically have visas in hand by now, we are definitely facing a lot of time pressure. So the sooner that people can hear from you all, really the better. So please see us as a resource. Certainly, if you have any questions that you don't feel comfortable asking, send them our way. And also, I should say, if you are successful in getting some media placements, please share them out so that we can then send them to your members if you haven't already. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Erica. It was really great.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it.